Hello everyone, welcome to the final video in the Massena preview video. This time we're looking on all the new maps to come, and as you can see, they are pretty gorgeous. This is the first one of the completely new one. This is Ripple, and let's have a look on this gorgeous map together. As you can see, it's a sizable one, but not super big. It's a 2v2 map, or at least advertised as a 2v2 map by Eugen. And one of two completely new maps, Ripple and Volcano, are those new two maps. And then we have 5 recuts of older maps to go over that have been recut into smaller versions, which are all pretty cool. And though this year might be my favorite, especially as they listened to our feedback and implemented something to make these forest regions a bit more enjoyable. And that are dirt roads, or Wirtschaftswege, Waldwirtschaftswege, called in Germany, because these roads are something that is pretty common in German forests. German forests are not just like woods that are left to nature, they are used economically to cut the wood and get it out and get through there from one field to another. So there would always be paths there, and these now can be used with vehicles to traverse forests quickly, but obviously also allow infantry to ambush those vehicles passing through. So forests are now a more integral part of maps and not just a relatively dead zone that can be used for some slow sneaks, at least on these newer maps. As you can see, a couple more roads in here, not all of them going all the way through, but most of them do. Some go through here as well. Yeah, over here we have more going through. So really nice new change to this map. And now let's have a look on the layout in general. So this map functions with 2 spawn zones for each side in the corners of the maps, and then 9 capture points on the map. 7 in the center down the lane, with 1 in a really open terrain in the super dead center of the map, with only a small tree line as cover in the whole zone. Most of these zones, 7 out of them are +1, only the 2 deepest are +2 zones. And then the side zones are also relatively open, though this one has a couple of buildings and a bit of cover, some light green cover back here as well. But on the other side, it's a really open one as well, with a small ridge in it though. And that maybe could use a bit of a rework, like maybe add this bit of zone to it as well. Obviously, all of this is still work in progress. So what you see here might change. For example, I would recommend for the kilo zone maybe to get become a +2 zone. But other than that, this is a really gorgeous map, and I like the new ideas and the feedback that it was implemented in this, really showing that Eugen is listening to us. And if you have feedback, go to the Eugen Discord and leave it there in an informative and like well implemented way, and then Eugen will read it and has a chance of implementing it. Don't just leave a "oh yeah, I like" or "oh, I don't like" there, but give a bit more of an argument for why you like, why you dislike things, and then Eugen can implement all of these things for us in the future and improve the game based on our feedback to them. So this is map number 1. Let's move on to the next map in this new update. And the next map is a recut of a familiar map, Mount River, the first of 2 recuts of this map. This one is the 1v1 version, and as you can see, it takes like 1/3 to 1/4 of the map and makes it into a 1v1 version around between the river and 2 of the lakes. And the zone layout is relatively standard as well. 5 zones, 1 in the center, 2 a bit further behind that are somewhat favored to each side, and then 2 really deep ones that are then also worth more points. And It's a relatively thin map. It's supposed to be a 1v1 map only, but it's most of the 1v1 maps currently in the rank pool are advertised as 2v2 maps as well. So I think it's still a bit too thin. Like, the space left and right could be a bit bigger. I would recommend Eugen to maybe include this side road, for example, that you have a bit of a flanking option here around, and then maybe a bit more airspace at least over the river. Like, you don't need to go to the other side, as there's no bridges here, but give more dead space over the river so that airplanes can fly a bit over a bit more space and can use that airspace a bit better. You can also shoot maybe out of these positions into the enemy side. Like, that would help out a bit. As microing airplanes on this map is a bit annoying at the moment. As first of all, AA networks easily cover the whole width of the front, and also you often can't click, as you can't click into dead space, and you can't fly over dead space as easily. Microing planes on the edges of the map is pretty tough, and you end up on the edges pretty often with them. But in general, I like the layout. And as I said, if you would have a flanking road here, I would think this map will have a lot of options of how to play it. So I would like to see that. And then this map is pretty great as a 1v1 edition as well. And it is already quite fun in this way. I played it against AI, and I played it also against Resman in a game that I still enjoyed. Yes, it's a bit more grindy. And yes, maybe not having as many paths as some other 1v1 maps we are used to at the moment. But not all maps have to be that way. Like, some maps can be a bit simpler. So a bit more variety here would be nice in my eyes. So yes, adding a bit more space here would be nice. With that said, yeah, good addition, nice recut. I think recycling old maps is a great idea, using less disk space on our PCs and allowing Eugen to give us more maps in general in numbers by just recycling what they already created and being more cost efficient in that regard as well. So let's move on to the next one. And the next one is a 10v10 map that made it into a 1v1 map. As you can see, this one is a bit wider than the map we just saw, more on par with other 1v1 maps, maybe, or like 1v1/2v2 maps. And I think it has a really nice side. Geisa as a 1v1 version. I was surprised that they did choose this side and didn't make it on the other side, but I guess they have a slightly more room here. And if we go into how the deployment looks like, you have one deployment zone for each side on the corners, and then you have 6 zones, 3 on each side, 3 for each player. The flanks are owned by 1 player each, and then 2 pretty close to the center of the map, slightly tilted in the favor of 1 player, and then 1+3 zone deep. So relatively classic layout here as well. You have a bit of dead area around here, you have a bit of dead area around here, like when it comes to zones, but that can be used for maneuvering. I think this map has a solid width. As I said, a bit more narrow than what we are used from the current 1v1 pool, but those mostly are also 2v2 maps and slightly on the large end. And I would say adding a couple of slightly smaller maps ain't a problem. And this has a bit better width than the Mount River one currently has. And also, there's not much valuable space to be added here, so I think this is the best that you can do, at least when it comes to choosing the zone to fight over on this map. When it comes to the zones, we will have to see how that plays out with a bit more testing, if these zones are located at the right spot, but so far they look pretty nice, even though they're relatively asymmetrical. But some asymmetrical maps can also be nice, giving you a different task depending on which side you start on. And yeah, it gives a nice amount of open long-range terrain with separated by some tree lines and buildings. No huge cities outside of the further back zones, but those will be seldom reached. And yeah, but still enough stuff to fight over. And I would say a great addition to the map pool and hopefully also to the rank pool as well. But we still have a lot more maps to cover. We are not even quite halfway through, so let's move on. And number 4, the midpoint of this video, is also a familiar map. It's chemicals, but it's quite a bit different to the chemicals we know, because yes, you don't have the river horizontally in front of you, but rather vertically going with you towards the enemy. So you don't have to switch river sides per se, though sometimes that still can help out, and some of your forces will still be split up with that island in somewhat of the center of the map, as the zone layout on this map is quite cool. You start on this side of the river, each player, and then you have 2 large zones in front of each player that are separated by a good amount of forest action. And then on the island, 1+3 zone, which is the center zone of this, which is pretty key, as it also is a +3 zone, so a really vital part. So engaging enemies river and bridges is quite valuable here as well. And then you have 2 really interesting zones on the other side of the river that also have a slow but sneaky pathway that can be used to get from one to the other without moving over the island. So a really interesting version and a quite unique map. I don't think we had anything like that in Steel Division yet, and we might get it though with the Turda DLC or the 2v2 version there, so it's quite similar to that. And an absolutely cool idea, for sure a great addition to the map pool, and I can't wait to play on this in some 2v2s, and maybe even in some 1v1s. Like, this also has the potential of being a nice 1v1 map, so I would like this in the map pool for 1v1 as well. But let me know down below if you think this would be a good 1v1 map as well, or if you think it's a bit too large for it, with a bit too many fronts. As I said, I would enjoy it, I think, as 1v1. So, yeah, let's move on with the next one, as this was the halfway mark. Still 3 more to come, and the last one will be a new one, a completely new one. But before that, we return once more to Mount River, but this time it's a 2v2 version. It's a square-shaped map, and we shift the axis on which we attack on this map now. Still, the lakes are a pivotal part of this map version, but they're surrounded by only 4 zones, and we come out of the corners towards the center, try to capture these 4 zones. 1 is tilted towards each team, and then 2 are in the center, pretty much dead center. And you could also push through here. It's a pretty cool, simple, really simple layout. Side spawns are also pretty cool. Could also maybe be viable as a 1v1 map. Yeah, not quite sure. But in general, a pretty simple and cool version of giving Mount River another look. Like, not much to say here, because this is relatively genius simplicity. Like, I didn't expect a 4-zone map to work out this well from the layout, but yes, it does. And really shows that it doesn't always have to be super fancy and like super thought-provoking when it comes to the zones. Sometimes simplicity wins out. We will have to see how balanced all the roads and so on are. Maybe some of these zones need to be shifted a bit, but in general, I like the idea a lot of how this map looks. So, yes, this is Mount River number 3. Let's move on to one more recutted map, or rather shifted map, and then we will have the new one in the end. And now you might think, wait, what is different here? This is just 2 ways, right? We already have that. That's a 2v2/1v1 map. Well, this is 2 ways, yes, but the perspective has shifted, and it actually has become larger. It is now a 3v3 map, using the previously thought about side spawns that they already hinted on in this map, which they then got rid of because they realized they were not fun in 1v1 and 2v2, to make this map be played from the sides and have both teams spawn on each flank and push from the other sides into the center of the map towards these mountains. And it's actually looking pretty nice. Maybe the spawns, like the length, the depth of the map is a bit on the low end, which could be having some slight negative side effects. But in general, it looks pretty cool when it comes to the zones. You have 5 zones in the middle, and then 3 zones for each team in the rears, and some nice lanes. It's a 3v3 map, so, and I think you really should play it with 3v3. Lesser player amounts ain't that good. 4v4 might work out as well, but as it kilometer wise is a relatively small map, 4v4 might be a bit too crowded on this. But yeah, with the side lanes and then some relatively compact fighting in the center, this could be a pretty cool map. It kind of looks like a mini Geyser this way. Like, that is quite nice. So yeah, it's a nice use of another old map, and the zones also seem to work out quite well. Though some of them are having a bit awkward like shapes, but we will see how that plays out in the final version. And then we come to the new big map, Volcano, which is a really massive 3v3/4v4 map that has a lot of space to offer and a lot of open space to offer on each flank as well. So tank fanatics will have a lot of fun on this map, as you will find your open spaces to push through. And it has a nice, like, Eugen really using the lighting really well to make the maps feel different, like the slightly foggy, slightly glaring, slightly dark feeling on this map gives it a pretty different vibe, even though the ground textures and the buildings are somewhat the same. Just by light, this completely looks different than, for example, Two Lakes with its sunny, summery afternoon feeling. So yeah, this is once more a great addition to the WARNO map roster and a good improvement over previous maps. Like, yes, it has lanes, but they're not as far split apart than, for example, the ones on Geyser, and not as far. Oh, and the forests are more easily traversable. A couple more roads in the center than on other maps before as well. For example, not quite the small ones we had on Ripple earlier. More bigger roads, but that's working just as well. So pretty cool new map as well. As you can see, a lot of zones, and like not a lot of dead space, but it's a pretty classic one. 2 center zones on each flank, then here on this flank 2 deeper zones, in the middle 2 deeper zones as well, one really deep, one center deep, and then on this side same thing as in the middle. So in general, quite a lot of nice zones to capture, a lot of ways of trying to tackle this map and trying to get the tick advantage over your opponent's team. And you, as like in a 3v3, could either play this as three separate 3v3s, one in this center fighting over this 6 zones, one in the north fighting over these 6 zones, and one in the south fighting over these 6 zones. Or you could play a bit more co-op, or maybe even also 4v4. More cooperative, pushing together through the center, giving up one flank a bit, or something like that. So yeah, a lot of ways to tackle this lovely new map. And as I said, I love the aesthetics of Volcano, the bit more darker theme here. And I really must say chapeau to the Eugen map makers. They really improved over the speed they had in Steel Division, and also the lighting just makes these maps feel so much better as well. And the graphics in general also obviously a great improvement. So thanks for all of that. And yep, thank you to all of you out there for watching. I hope you enjoyed these preview videos to Massena, and I hope you are as hyped for this milestone as I am. And let me know down below which of these new maps you like the most and what you would like for future maps and maybe recuts of already existing maps down below as well. And I hope to see you all in the next one. And don't forget to subscribe so you see that as well. Bye bye and have a nice day.